You should have Googled my name, Norman Finkelstein, or gone to YouTube and entered my name. Now it's too late. And then these are all different letters, by the way, okay? You are on notice that I am reporting you tomorrow to Child Protective Services because your child is up every night until 12 a.m.
Is this Mr. Borelli?
This is Mr. Borelli. And you know what? If all we're talking about is weird personal shit today, then fuck it, why not? If I'm just a cucked, divorced, deeply unserious person, then let's be a cucked, divorced, deeply unserious person. So, this is some of the most unhinged shit I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how much I'm gonna publicly link because, oh, actually, let me give this warning right now, okay? And I'm not joking, and it will be a perma IP ban, even if you do it rage pope because you have a habit of just like saying retarded fucking shit in chat. If anybody tries to link to this or points to it, I will just perm ban you, and you're gone for at least 2 years, okay? Just as a heads up, okay? Because I don't know if it counts as doxing or any bullshit like that, all right? So, or I'll give a, the thing is, there's like a greater conspiracy behind this, but I'm too lazy to dig into all of this because I don't care that much. But there's a greater conspiracy behind all of this that makes it even more funny. So I'll give a bit of this meme, and then you guys can dig through this if you want, I guess. So, one of the questions I was asking that I didn't understand is, because people are asking, like, do you think Norm is crazy? Do you think whatever? And I don't know, because he seems like he reads a lot. There's no way that there are people just like clipping things for him. Hold on. There's no way that people are just like clicking things for him or clipping things for him or like quoting things for him and sending it to him and, you know, that's it. Because I feel like that would have leaked by now or something, right? So somebody emailed me and I think I have an answer. I think that Norm is actually mentally very unwell, okay? I think that he's mentally very unwell. So this is I'll just read through some of this. I'll read this down, okay? I'm just gonna read this down, and I'll talk about where I'm at on it, okay? So this is a court case. Norm Finkelstein is the plaintiff, and he's trying to sue two people. All right. I just want to read down this this civil thing. It's 13 pages, but it's legal stuff, so short pages. Okay. Parties. At all times hereinafter mentioned, plaintiff Norman G. Finkelstein was and still is a resident of blah blah blah. At all times mentioned, he obtained his doctorate from the Princeton University Politics Department in 1988. At all times hereinafter mentioned, he is a professor, writer, and lecturer. At all times hereinafter mentioned, he has written some 10 scholarly books that have been translated into more than 50 foreign editions. At all times hereinafter, one of plaintiff Norman G. Finkelstein's publications was named a, quote, notable book of the year, end quote, by the New York Times Book Review, and another was an international bestseller. At all times hereinafter mentioned, plaintiff Norman G. Finkelstein has lectured at leading academic institutions, including but not limited to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Cambridge, and Oxford. In or about in 2017, Finkelstein was invited to teach and supervise PhD thesis at the Max Planck Institute in Halle, Germany. On Monday and Wednesday evenings, Norman G. Finkelstein is a volunteer at the main Brooklyn Public Library branch, known as I don't know, where he teaches the classics in Western political theory. Although this is 7 years old, but an award-winning documentary film has been made of plaintiff Norm G. Finkelstein's life. A theatrical production based on his life, If I Forget, was recently staged at the Roundabout Theater on Broadway. And then at all times herein mentioned after, defendant Carl, I'll just read the first name, was and still is a resident of this place. At all times hereinafter mentioned, that's Carol. And then defendant Roberto was and still is a resident of this place. Okay. Then we have the factual background. For the past 22 years, Norm has lived a quiet, inconspicuous life at the apartment building known as blah, blah, blah. Prior to the relocation of the defendants to the apartment building known and designated as blah, 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 Norman Finkelstein experienced no problems with his fellow tenants, neighbors, and or the landlord. Indeed, plaintiff Finkelstein enjoyed excellent relations with everyone in the subject building prior to the arrival of the defendants. Once the defendants moved into the apartment of the subject building premises, the plaintiff, Norman Finkelstein, recognized the defendant, Carol, as the person who impersonated a physician at a counterfeit medical establishment located next door to the subject building premises. Before Norman Finkelstein was aware that the defendant, Carol, did not possess a medical license, he patronized the sham office. After this office visit, Norman G. Finkelstein learned that the defendant, Carol, billed the government and senior citizens, including himself. In the summer of 2015, the plaintiff and the defendant were present together in the elevator of the subject building premises when the plaintiff, Norm Finkelstein, recognized the defendant, Carol, as the impersonating doctor. The defendant, Carol, then began to shout, "I am a doctor! I am a doctor! I am a young doctor!" Ever since then, the defendants did everything imaginable to make life miserable for the plaintiff, Norman G. Finkelstein. Day in and day out, the defendants stomped on the floor and dropped heavy objects at all hours of the day and night, and would turn on a high-powered vacuum cleaner in the middle of the night. I'm not making any of this up. I'm reading verbatim. The only thing I'm omitting are addresses or last names, just so you know, okay? The defendant, Roberto, even threatened to kill the plaintiff, Norman Finkelstein, if he didn't stop calling the police, which Finkelstein reported to the local police precinct. The plaintiff, Norman G. Finkelstein, lodged numerous detailed complaints with the landlord and also repeatedly called 311 and 911. In 2016, 4 officers came to the plaintiff's door at 6 p.m., stating that the defendant, Carol, alleged that the plaintiff attacked her with a knife in one hand and a gun in the other. The defendant, Carol, next appeared at the plaintiff's door and knowingly, deliberately, and intentionally falsely identified the plaintiff as the attacker with the knife and the gun. There was no truth, validity, and or basis in the allegation made by the defendant, Carol. The defendant, Carol, fabricated false information for the purpose of having the plaintiff arrested. The plaintiff, Norman Finkelstein, was arrested by the 4 police officers, and he was escorted out of the building in handcuffs as neighbors stood on their balconies or in the street to witness this humiliating spectacle. The plaintiff, Norman Finkelstein, was held in custody at the blank precinct for 17 hours with a psychotic drunk. The plaintiff became suicidal, and the police were on the verge of calling an ambulance. The plaintiff, Norman G. Finkelstein, was transferred to the detention facility on some street in Brooklyn, where he was held in 2 different holding cells with a score of other inmates. Approximately 29 hours after the initial arrest of the plaintiff, Norman G. Finkelstein, he was released on his own recognizance by a justice of the criminal court. The defendants prepared a false and misleading criminal complaint and statements purporting that the Norman G. Finkelstein had engaged in criminal wrongdoing, such as menacing the defendant simultaneously with a gun and a knife. On or about April 4th, 2017, the criminal case against the plaintiff, Norman G. Finkelstein, was dismissed. The plaintiff, Norm Finkelstein, incurred attorney's fees in the sum of $10,000 arising out of his representation by an attorney in the criminal case. And then, as and for a first cause of action, defamation per se. The criminal complaint and statements were defamatory and false and have exposed the plaintiff, Norm Finkelstein, to ridicule and disgrace. The criminal complaint and statements directly implicated the plaintiff's profession and involvement in criminal wrongdoing. Defendants acting in concert intentionally prepared false records with malicious intent for the purpose of destroying the plaintiff's profession and good moral conduct. The defendants knew that the criminal complaint and statements and other documents were false, and the defendants acted in reckless disregard of the truth or falsity of the reports. As a result of the defendant's conduct, the plaintiff, Norm Finkelstein, has incurred significant damages and is entitled to damages in the amount to be determined at trial. By reason of the foregoing, Norman G. Finkelstein has been damaged in an amount which, after the adjustments and calculations expected to be required by the application of Article 50B of the Civil Practice Law and Rules, exceeds the jurisdictional limit at all lower courts that would otherwise have jurisdiction. And then for a second cause of action, slander per se. Plaintiff Norm G. Finkelstein repeats, reiterates, and realleges all of the facts set forth in paragraph numbers 1 through 42, with some force, with the same force and effect as if set forth at full length herein. The words so spoken were false and defamatory, were known to the defendants to be false and defamatory, and were spoken willfully and maliciously with the intent to damage the plaintiff's good name, reputation, and credit as a scholar and writer. As a result of the defendant's conduct, the plaintiff, Norm Finkelstein, has incurred significant damages and is entitled to damages in the amount to be determined at trial. By reason of the foregoing, plaintiff Norman G. Finkelstein has been damaged in an amount after which adjustments he asked for this, and then there's a third cause of action, which is for intentional infliction of emotional distress. And then I'm skipping some paragraphs. There's a fourth cause of action, which is malicious prosecution. Is that a word? Is it supposed to be malicious? Maybe malicious is a legal term? Okay. And then he just goes through how he was, they filed a false criminal report against me. Fifth cause of action is malicious prosecution. Fourth, and as for a fourth cause of action, wait, is this just out of order? Sorry, there's like weird typos and shit. Fourth, fifth, and then this is supposed to be a sixth cause of action, and then just punitive damages, but then he just goes through and he lists basically, I want to sue these people because they fucked with me, okay? So, I thought it was just kind of funny that he, I guess he was suing his neighbors for, I guess his neighbors were unhinged, or they did, I guess his neighbors were unhinged, or they made too much noise and they ended up getting into some kind of altercation, and then he decided to try to sue them for defamation or slander. I thought it was a funny meme. I thought that was kind of a funny meme. Then I read the response from the defendants. Holy shit. Now, I will say that in Norm's filing, Norm didn't have any exhibits. There was no evidence presented. Maybe that's normal in a complaint, that you don't actually file exhibits to show what you're talking about. But the defendants had a lot of exhibits. So here is the counterclaim from the defendants. Defendants Carol and Roberto, through their undersigned counsel, answering the complaint of plaintiff, respectfully alleges the following upon information and belief. 1, defendants deny specifically paragraphs, and then there's like 30 or 40 paragraphs here. Defendants specifically deny the following, blah, blah, blah. Defendants admit paragraph 19, only to the extent that defendant Carol and plaintiff Norman Finkelstein were in an elevator at the subject building in the summer of 2015, but deny the rest of the allegations, the truth being the contrary as set forth below. As for the statements of facts, the present action has been commenced in bad faith and is patently meritless in both law and fact. Defendants Carol and Roberto are a married couple. They are both migrants to the United States. On or about 2012 to 2016, they resided at some residence. The defendants were and still are. Oh, also, as a quick spoiler alert, this case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning Norm cannot file again, and the case is done, so it was tossed out of court. Just as where this ends up, just so you know. Defendants were and still are hardworking professionals. During the time they resided in their above-mentioned apartment in Brooklyn, they were usually at work and away from home on weekdays. On weekends, they were also often out of the house. Out of common decency and respect for their neighbors, defendants did not bother their neighbors by making any noise from their apartment, and they did their best to avoid and or minimize any kind of noise. Occasionally, however, noise and vibrations from the apartment above them would be heard and felt in defendant's apartment, which may have been the cause of plaintiff's complaints. On or about the summer of 2015, plaintiff Norman Finkelstein, apparently claiming that the defendants were intentionally making noise in their apartment, purposely to annoy plaintiff, started a campaign of harassment and intimidation against the defendants in order to drive them out of the apartment. Plaintiff made false and malicious reports against defendants to the Child Protective Services, seeking to have defendants' 2-year-old daughter taken away from the defendants. On or about August 14th, 2015, defendants received a letter, Exhibit A, from Child Protective Services that a report had been filed against them for suspected child abuse or maltreatment. But the CPS dismissed the complaints and advised the defendants in a letter that the complaints filed against them were unfounded. Plaintiffs also made false reports to the police and immigration authorities against the defendants without just cause other than to harass the defendants. On or about August 15th, 2015, plaintiff and defendant Carol were in an elevator at the subject apartment building. Plaintiff suddenly confronted defendant Carol, yelling, "Your husband is a drug addict. I am a professor. I am a doctor. I will do everything for them to take away your daughter." This outrageous outburst shocked defendant. Refusing to be bullied, defendant tried to defend herself and her family and told plaintiff that he is not the only professional in the building. After the aforesaid incident, plaintiff committed more intimidating and hateful actions against the defendants. On several occasions, these incidents compelled the defendants to contact the police. On or about August of 2015, plaintiff struck defendant's apartment door with heavy blows from a heavy object. Attached is a picture of the damage to defendant's door as a result of the blows, Exhibit C. Let me throw some of these up here on the I'm just going to read. Exhibit A is, dear blah, blah, blah. This is to inform you that you are the subject of a report of suspected child abuse or maltreatment received by the New York State by the New York State Child Abuse and Maltreatment Register. It's just a letter saying that they had been reported to Child Protective Services, basically. The report is confidential and can only be released to certain authorized persons, granted rights access to the state law, blah, blah, blah. And then Exhibit B is the follow-up report. We can now inform you that as a result of the assessment made by the local Child Protective Services, no credible evidence was found to believe that the children have been abused or maltreated. Therefore, the report has been determined unfounded. That's those first letters. I wonder if I can do, so here is Exhibit C, I believe. Plaintiff would also strike the walls and ceiling of his own apartment, which would rattle and terrify the defendant's family upstairs. Plaintiff would engage in unprompted, harassing conduct with the defendants. At one point, plaintiff went up to defendant's apartment and rang the buzzer and refused to let go of the buzzer. This act caused the defendants, and especially their baby daughter, to hide in fear. Plaintiff will also fasten menacing, outrageous, and defamatory letters containing prejudiced, hateful, and abusive language upon the front door of defendant's apartment in full view of the other people in the building. In one of the letters, Exhibit D, which plaintiff posted outside the defendant's door on or about in this date, plaintiff told the defendants, here is Exhibit D. Wait, is it a new album link? How does this work? Hold on. Oh shit, hold on, I forgot how to make this work. I'll just do it one page at a time. If you stomp and bang on your bedroom floor in the morning between 6:30 and 8:30 a.m., I will bang on your door and on my bedroom ceiling between 3:30 and 5 a.m. the next morning. If I don't sleep, you don't sleep. If you can't control yourself, you can rent the gorilla cage in the Bronx Zoo. I will happily supply fresh bananas. In another letter, Exhibit E, which was posted outside the defendant's door on or about June of 2016. Here is, I'm just gonna start screenshotting and posting these over here. Starting at 3:30 a.m., you will not be sleeping tonight. Subsequently, in another letter, which was posted outside of the defendant's door on or about the next night, too bad, apes. You're not sleeping tonight. Even before the above-mentioned letters, in June of 2016, plaintiff had posted other defamatory letters outside of defendant's apartment door in full view of other people in the building. On or about August of 2015, plaintiff posted a letter, Exhibit G, hold on. Okay, so make sure there's anything like too crazy identifying here. It's all, technically it's public court filing, so I really, it's all whatever here. People are posting shit in my channel. You are on notice. 2 officers from the 61st Precinct knocked on your door this morning and again this evening. I told them that you were inside and refused to open the door. I pointed to your car parked in front of the building. I informed them the 2 times that Roberto threatened to kill me in the elevator. I also informed them that Carol was involved in Medicare/Medicaid fraud and impersonated a doctor. If anything happens to me, you will end up in jail. You had better stop the noise and stop threatening my life. I was advised by the officers to call 911 every time the noise starts, or you threaten my life. The officers said that sooner or later, you will not be able to hide anymore. Professor Norman G. Finkelstein, apartment 3A. Hold on. Oh, man. On or about August of 2015, plaintiff posted a letter stating that police had knocked on their door again and defendants refused to open the door, that 2 times Roberto threatened to kill me, and that Carol was involved in Medicare/Medicaid fraud and impersonated a doctor, and that the defendants needed to stop threatening my life. On or about August 21st, plaintiff posted a letter. Okay. All of the next things are just... Okay. All of the next paragraphs are just more... are just more exhibits. Okay, I'm just gonna do an album of these. Bro, this is some of the most unhinged neighbor shit I have ever seen. Hold on. Let me... But also, you know, pardon me, I wasn't familiar with your game. Okay, I kind of respect it. Hold on, sorry. Hold up. Hold on, hold on. I'll have to screenshot here. Okay, down to about here. This is good. This is up to Exhibit S. To Carol and Roberto from Norman G. Finkelstein. You've got 2 days to move or the troubles begin. You committed the biggest mistake of your life yesterday. I had 2 guests in my apartment. One of them, a professor of criminology. They listened to the noise for 4 hours. At midnight, we all went together to the police precinct where we all spoke to several police officers. The police are now fully informed about the situation. They urged me to call 311 the moment the noise starts again. I also contacted Child Protection Services. I already spoke to several of your friends in the elevator on the way to your party about you. I now know your places of employment, which I will contact this week. But here's your big problem. On Tuesday, August 18th, I will contact Immigration and Naturalization Services. I will inform them of, quote, young doctor, Carol's former job at the fake medical office next door run by the Russian mafioso fake doctor. I know exactly what was really going on there. Faking a medical establishment in New York is a criminal offense and grounds for immediate deportation. Carol and Roberto's papers and your babysitter's papers better be in order when INS pays a visit. You now have 2 days to quickly and quietly vacate the apartment. If you make any noise while moving, I will immediately contact the police again and tell them about Carol's past. I warned you in the last letter that I knew about the illicit activity. You chose to carry on like animals. You will now pay the price. I warned you that you will never win against me. You should have Googled my name, Norman Finkelstein, or gone to YouTube and entered my name. Now it's too late. And then these are all different letters, by the way, okay? You are on notice that I am reporting you tomorrow to Child Protective Services because your child is up every night until 12 a.m. I also have reason to believe illicit activity is taking place in your apartment, which I will report to the police tomorrow. Dr. Norman G. Finkelstein, apartment 3A. The noise stopped for 3 days, so I didn't call Immigration and Naturalization Services. But now it is starting again. If you don't stop the noise, I am calling the police, but this will be the last call to the police. You will end up either deported, arrested, or without your child. You decide. To Robert and Carol, from Norm. Vacating apartment. I'm giving you until August 31st to move out. If you are still in the apartment on September 1st, I will inform the NYPD of Carol's past. It seems that Carol's forgotten that I was one of the young doctor's patients. I was also a patient of the Russian mafioso doctor who had no medical equipment in the office. If you disturb me or the guests in my apartment between now and August 31st, I will call the police and it will be all over for you. You decide. I don't care now if you buy 1,000 carpets. You must move out of the apartment by August 31st. Medicaid/Medicare fraud is a criminal offense. Impersonating a physician is a criminal offense. A babysitter who does not pay taxes is committing a criminal offense. You should keep this in mind the next time you threaten to call the police. It will be your last time. I will tell them everything. You'd better keep that child quiet. No wonder this guy thinks UN resolutions are effective. I guess he's like doing the same on their door, right? Just one after another. Maybe eventually the noise will stop. You have 8 days to move out. If you're still here on September 1st, someone is going to jail. If the noise continues, I will call the police now. Remember, Medicare/Medicaid fraud is a criminal offense. Impersonating a physician is a criminal offense. Faking a medical establishment to commit medical fraud is a criminal offense. Do you want to go to jail? You have 8 more days to move out. If you're not gone by September 1st, I will go to the police and tell them everything. Medicare/Medicaid fraud, impersonating a medical doctor, fake medical office. You'll end up in jail for a very long time or deported. So get out of this building while you still have a chance. You had better tell the babysitter to keep the child quiet. If there's any noise on Monday, I will not ring the buzzer. He's using underlines here. I will not bang on the door. I will just call the police and it will be over for you. You decide. If you don't want to go to jail, you'll tell the babysitter to do her job. You have until 12 noon. If there is a moving van in front of the building, I will wait for you until you move out. If not, I'm calling the police and it's over. That's the last bang. On Monday, August 23rd at noon, I am calling the police and telling them everything. If the babysitter does not have papers or is not paying taxes, you should warn her. You had your chance, but you are now finished. On or about, this is fact 30. Wow, Felix, thanks for the 20 gifted subs. On or about August 24th, plaintiff posted a letter stating that he's calling the police and telling them everything, that the defendants had your chance, and that the defendants are now finished. On or about August 27th, 2015, plaintiff posted a letter, Exhibit R, this has like addresses and everything, so I'm just gonna read this letter. I'm just gonna read this. I think he posted this letter to the building's management, and I think he posted it up in like a hallway, it says. It just says he posted a letter stating that the building where the defendants live, and then it says a copy of this letter was also hand-delivered to the building's management, okay? Here's the letter. My name is Norman G. Finkelstein. I live at address. I cared for my father, who lived in this apartment for 15 years until his death. He suffered from a degenerative brain injury that he had incurred in Auschwitz concentration camp. When he passed away 20 years ago, this past January, I took over the apartment. For 20 years, I reveled in living in this building. I used to say the only way I would leave was when I was taken out in my coffin. Unfortunately, as the building underwent a rapid turnover and alteration in demographic in recent years, things began to change decidedly for the worse. Keep in mind, demographic. This was written in 2017, by the way, not like 1995 or whatever, but what a weird phrase, but okay. About a year ago, I registered complaints about the mouse and cockroach infestation and the rash of burglaries. But it's also true that blank blank management acted expeditiously and the situation was restored to the status quo ante. However, a new major problem has arisen, and it cannot be said that the management's response has been timely or satisfactory. Quite the contrary. Approximately 1 month ago, the family living in 4A, Robert and Carol, began inflicting intolerable amounts of noise. Banging, stomping, heavy objects being dropped, screeching from furniture being moved at all hours of the day and night. This racket typically reached its crescendo between 11:15 p.m. and 1 a.m. nonstop. Judging by the stomping, it seems that their child isn't put to bed until 1 or 2 a.m. and arises at 11 a.m. I repeatedly spoke to Robert, but it has not always been easy to communicate with him. It appears that he suffers from some mental impairment. Whether it be congenital or substance-induced, I cannot say. Unfortunately, he was wholly unresponsive to my pleas and eventually became verbally violent. I also asked the building manager, Ray, and the super, Andre, on multiple occasions to intervene. Ray seemed sympathetic to my plight, but also conceded that noise issues are not always easy to resolve. Wait, memes? Oh, we'll get that. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Andre gave very generously of his time and spoke several times to the family. He urged them to at least make a good faith effort by putting down carpets, but they turned a deaf ear to his recommendations. I also spoke to friends of the family, pleading with them. I spoke to friends of the family, pleading with them to intervene so that this matter could be resolved amicably. I do not know what became of this. On Saturday, 15th August 2015, things reached a breaking point. I had two house guests, one of whom is a professor of criminology at the City University of New York. The banging and screeching was such that, at midnight, all three of us headed over to the 61st Precinct, where a formal complaint was filed. Officer Jean offered to intervene on my behalf. After he spoke to the people in 4A, he urged me to call 311 if and when the situation became intolerable again. I've now accumulated a large record of complaints and spoken at length with a person who identified himself or herself as Terrell. There is another element in this situation that I withheld from the police until this past week. It happens that I know of Carol's past. For several years, there used to be a counterfeit medical establishment right next door to blah blah on the blah 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 side of the building. It shut down around a year ago and has since been replaced by a florist and a realtor. It was one of those Medicare/Medicaid scams that sprung up in this part of Brooklyn until the police started cracking down on them. A Russian man posed as a doctor along with Carol. I once mistakenly walked into the office with an ailment, unaware that it was a scam operation. It slowly dawned on me that something was awry, not least because the only medical instrument in the doctor's office was an ancient stethoscope. When Carol recently became aware that I was on to her, she went ballistic. One day she began screaming at the top of her lungs in the elevator and on the ground floor corridor, "I am a doctor. I am a young doctor." The son of the former soup, Sal, was witness to the scene. The physician databases show no listing for Carol. It seems she also confused the role that she impersonated at the fake medical office with real life. I kept this information back for a simple reason. She was involved in medical fraud, which is a criminal offense. If she's indicted and convicted, she will lose her child, and the child will lose at least one of her parents. I posted at least a dozen notices on their door urging them to resolve the problem before I turned this information over to the police. But it seems this had the reverse effect of increasing their determination to harass me until I moved out. The situation is now at an impasse and moment of truth. I have exhausted all possible remediation options. I told Ray 2 weeks ago that if the problem persisted, I would have no recourse except to suspend payment of my rent until the apartment becomes livable again. I recognize that we will end up in court. I am prepared to confront that eventuality. After speaking to the building office manager, after filing multiple complaints in person at the 61st Precinct and at 311, after taking every possible initiative to resolve this matter reasonably, I cannot believe a judge will find against me. I have not been able to sleep in weeks. My professional life has been paralyzed. I missed a manuscript deadline because I was simply unable to concentrate. I have fallen into a deep depression and now suffer from a loss of appetite and consequent loss of weight. I will resume paying my rent when the apartment becomes livable again. Where were we? That was Exhibit R. On or about August 28th, plaintiff posted a letter, Exhibit S, stating that defendants should cease their intolerable conduct, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is Exhibit S. Another memorandum that he posted. A copy of this letter was also hand-delivered to the building's management. I am leaving tomorrow for a short business trip to Glasgow, Scotland. I return on Monday afternoon. My godchild will be watching over the apartment. Herewith, I am setting forth my intentions upon my return. For the past month, I've had to endure an unendurable living situation. The family in apartment 4A has been banging, stomping, screeching while moving furniture from 6:30 a.m. throughout the day until 3 a.m. Both my house guests this month, my godchild, and a young man whom I tutor for the graduate record exam, have borne witness to the ceaseless racket and mayhem. I have made every effort to resolve this matter amicably, and when the initiatives fail, I call to the building porter, building super, building manager, and police to intervene in order to resolve it. I have lived in this building for the past 2 decades, and it's just like all a restatement basically of all these, yeah. These are the actions I intend to take. So 1 is I'm informing management that I will suspend payment of my rent. 2 is I will inform the Department of Consumer Fraud that Dr., in quotes, Carol was involved in a Medicare/Medicaid scam And then 3 is, I will inform Child Protective Services that the child in 4A is a victim of neglect. This child is 2 years old, yet she runs wild in the apartment, stomping and throwing objects on the ground every day until 3 a.m. It's happening right now as I type these words. I have checked with a pediatrician, a nurse, and a social worker. This is neglect, plain and simple. A child her age should be in bed by around 8 p.m. I will return on the 1st of September. If peace and quiet are not restored, I will immediately take these 3 actions. Wow, Sophia, thanks for the 20 gifted subs. That was Exhibit S. Exhibit T is another letter to management saying that the racket hasn't stopped. On some days, the ceiling shakes and the walls rattle to the point that I fear for my safety. That must be a big 2-year-old. If this intolerable situation is not cured within the next 10 days, I will commence legal action. The defendants asked an attorney to write a cease and desist letter to the plaintiff, but to no avail. Plaintiff did not stop harassing defendants. He merely responded to the cease and desist letter with copies of the letters Exhibit R and S he had previously furnished to the management. On or about the night of June 22nd, while defendant Carol and her baby daughter were inside their apartment, Carol heard a very loud crashing noise on her apartment door. She was pregnant at the time and was very scared. Looking out the peephole in terror, she saw the plaintiff outside of her apartment brandishing a knife and what appeared to be a gun. Carol called the police, who subsequently arrested the plaintiff. Can you imagine how horrifying it would be to see fucking Norm smashing your fucking door? What the fuck? Faced with this series of events, the Blank family had been wanting to leave the apartment to escape from the plaintiff. Defendants eventually moved to Staten Island on or about October 31st. Subsequently, the DA's office called the defendants and asked them if they wanted to continue their criminal complaint. Thinking that their nightmare with the plaintiff was finally over, the defendants advised the DA's office that they did not want to pursue their criminal complaint against the plaintiff. But when the criminal case was discontinued, the plaintiff filed this present action, which is frivolous and is unfounded in both law and fact. It is merely another act the plaintiff has done in his campaign of bullying and prejudice. It has been maliciously commenced to plague defendants with the aggravation of a lawsuit and force them to spend a lot of money for attorney's fees and litigation costs in defending themselves. As in for affirmative defenses, defendants repeat and re-allege the foregoing statements by reference as if they are fully set henceforth. Plaintiff's complaint fails to state a cause of action or fails to plead necessary elements with sufficient particularity in compliance with the CPLR. Plaintiff has come to court with unclean hands and has committed immoral and unconscionable conduct directly related to the subject matter of the litigation and is thus not entitled to relief. The alleged damage sustained by plaintiff were caused partly or wholly by plaintiff's own conduct, and the amount of damages recoverable, if any, should be diminished by the proportional amount of plaintiff's culpability. Plaintiff failed to mitigate the damages alleged. His damages are de minimis in nature. The plaintiff should be dismissed on the grounds of laches. I don't know some of these legal terms. Is barred by estoppel. Failed to implead a necessary party or parties. Any damages sustained by plaintiff were caused by parties other than the defendants. Yeah. And then this is just responding to the claims of defamation, saying that it's basically not their fault, it's the Norm's fault. By accusing defendants of illegal employment or immigration status and calling them animals and apes, plaintiffs' acts were committed with prejudice and malice. Okay. So that was their counterfiling. And then, let's see, on the next few documents, what's the deeper conspiracy? Well, this is just fucking wild. That when I read that he called immigration and CPS to fuck with these people. Let's see. Preliminary conference order pursuant to Part 2 of the Uniform Civil Rules of the Supreme County Court. Let me just read the final. Nothing else of substance really goes back. Yeah. So the settlement agreement is, whereas there is a pending civil action between the above parties of the Supreme Court of the State of New York, captioned Norman Finkelstein versus Carolyn Roberto, wherein the parties have agreed to settle and resolve the said pending action with each party to bear their own legal fees and costs. Now, therefore, in consideration of the foregoing and the mutual covenants contained herein, and further, the pending action between the parties is hereby dismissed with prejudice, including the counterclaim of the defendants in the said pending action within 5 business days of the full and proper signing and execution of this agreement, including any counterparts. Plaintiff's attorney shall file with the court a stipulation discontinuing action with prejudice and without cost, discontinuing the subject of action and all counterclaims. And then mutual release, coming out to suit, and yeah. So it was, the case ends up being dismissed. So, yeah. So this was on its own wild and unhinged for a variety of reasons, which I thought was fucking hilarious, and explains a little bit more of his mentality. So I understand he's like a fucking crazy person. But then the funny thing on top of that is apparently there's a lot of drama with him around this case where he's like talked about this case, but the way that he apparently represents it, now I haven't dug into this almost at all, but the way that he apparently represents it is that there were like these lawyers that were going after him for bullshit reasons, and he like made petitions to try to attack the lawyers of the other party. Okay, so spoiler alert, this may be good, I haven't listened to this at all. I don't know, I have no idea what's in this video, but this is linked. But help Norman Finkelstein in his police brutality ordeal. German, Turkish, and French subtitles. On October 9th, the Long Island police came to Dr. Norman Finkelstein's house, beat him up mercilessly, and then shoved him inside a jail cell. All because he dared challenge the mafioso duo, Michael Chetkov and Allison Berger. All because he brooks no injustice and is loath to see the life of a dear friend destroyed before his very eyes. Let me check real quick. Is this the name of the... Are these the lawyers on the opposing party? By the way, Norman's written, he's written a ton of articles on this, but they're all deleted. But they're available on archive.org. Okay, never mind. I don't know if I don't think these two lawyers are necessarily tied to this one. Let me make sure this is like the same. Leo is their lawyer's name. Leo? I see Rosales del Rosario. I'm trying to see if I just want to make sure the arrest date lines up to make sure that I'm not including like different. What did I when I was reading this, did they say when he was arrested for banging on the door? Did I read a date for that? Oh, it was on June 22nd. That's when he got arrested. So did he get arrested another time for something different? Okay, this must be a different arrest then. Okay. Yeah, I have no idea what this particular thing is about then. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea what this is about then. It might be true, it might not be true, but I truly have no idea. He has been arrested and belligerent many times over the last 15 years. But, yeah. What a... Jesus fucking Christ. Can Norm please join the Discord call and defend himself? Maybe, actually. Hold on. Oh shit! Hold on. What's the? I can post the like core docs in chat. I don't mind as much, but I just don't want them on. I don't want them like my YouTube chat or anything like that. Because I mean, technically, they're all public filings, and I don't think anybody lives here anymore. So, but. Hello?
Hello. Is this Mr. Borelli?
This is Mr. Borelli.
Hello, Mr. Borelli. Is Dr. Norm Finkelstein. And I just wanted to call in to say, and I want to preface this by saying that I deal only in facts, okay? I've been an academic for over 100 years, and I just want to say that I had a very nice time with your mother last night. She slogged on my knob like corn on the cob, and if it is not apparent what I mean by that, I'm talking, of course, about my penis. And additionally, completely independent of my influence, she has joined a popular domestic insurgency group known as Hamas. And I just wanted to let you know that, Mr. Spaghetti.
Well, thanks for keeping me updated. Do you have
Absolutely.
anything else, buddy?
No, Mr. Spinelli, that will be all.
Okay. Well, I hope you gave my mom a good time. I appreciate it, okay?
I always do, my friend. Goodbye.
Okay. He needs to talk way slower. He needs to talk way slower for the Norm voice. When I initially had this lawsuit thing emailed to me and I was reading it, I was kind of like, okay, it's kind of funny, but I don't think like leaking this would actually just make me seem kind of spiteful or whatever. But then when I read the counterclaim and I saw that Norm called, this is me as a father speaking, Norm called CPS and immigration just because he was mad at his neighbors? That's unhinged. That is insane. That is insane. You're gonna call Child Protective Services and immigration to get your neighbors deported and to get their child taken away? That's wild. Nah, fuck no. People wanna call me a rapist on Twitter? We can go over public court filings on him being unhinged.